So the Backlog is now 2 years old, and the anniversary was actually back in August, but I was still recovering from that giant Dragon Ball Games episode I did, so we're celebrating now instead. And I don't talk about myself very much on the show, and that's on purpose, because I want the show to be about the games and not me. But last year, for the 1-year anniversary, I did that big 2-part collection tour of all of our games and gaming stuff, so I figured this year I'd do something that's also a little bit more personal and, talk to you as myself a little bit more. And so I want to talk about a game that means a whole lot to me, and that's EarthBound for the Super Nintendo. And besides, when you sign up to do a gaming show on YouTube, it's actually in your contract that you have to do an EarthBound episode. So, here we go.
I'm not going to bother doing a review or give a bunch of background information on the game because you already know all about it. It's a game loved the world over for its characters, its heart, and its humor. Calling it fantastic is selling it short, and if you haven't played it yet, it's $10 on the Wii U Virtual Console, and even if you need to buy a Wii U to play it due to crazy prices for the SNES cartridge, it's still worth it. EarthBound means a lot to me, and not just because I like the game. It's important to me because I discovered it at a very transitional period in my life, and it was one of the first games I played with my wife when we were still dating. In fact, she introduced me to it as it was such an important part of her childhood, so to me it felt like I got to share in some of her memories that I wasn't around for. I'll tell the longer version of the story another time, but the Cliff's Notes version of the tale is that I met my wife on an Animal Crossing message board that we both worked for. We had been friends for a few years before we decided, hey, we really like each other, maybe we should meet up and see if this can work. The problem was, I lived in Sacramento and she was in Boston, so I took a week of vacation and flew out to meet her. Needless to say, it all worked out pretty well. Anyway, I only knew of Ness from his appearances in Super Smash Bros., and when she discovered this, she sat me down in front of her Super Nintendo, thrust the controller into my hands, and told me to play. I was immediately drawn in by the game's charm. The colorful graphics, the stellar writing, wacky music, and totally bizarre characters. It was a game world I didn't want to leave because it was so unlike anything I'd ever seen before. I didn't get very far in that first week and had to go home, but within the year I had packed up my stuff and moved across the country to be with the woman I loved. That's when EarthBound really started to mean something to me.
I moved to Boston in 2007 when I was just 23 years old. I lived in the same town my entire life, and I was really not the kind of person that ever embraced change. I don't really remember the thought process that went behind me just leaving everything behind and moving across the country to be with this amazing woman. It was just kind of, this is what I'm gonna do. It was a really interesting time for me.
EarthBound, at its base level, is about a young boy who leaves his home to save the world. There's obviously a lot more to it than that, but a lot of the game's emotional hooks stem from Ness being on his own for the very first time, discovering who he is through the challenges he faces and the friends he makes along the way. That really struck a chord with me. I was leaving the only home I'd ever known and was trying to make my way in an unfamiliar place. I was moving from a quiet suburb to the outskirts of a major city. I felt smaller than I ever had, but it was still a time of excitement, of new beginnings, and self-discovery. Removing myself from my comfort zone gave me a better idea of who I was than I'd ever had before. When I was finally living with my eventual wife, I finally finished the game with her beside me. Without spoiling anything, the final scenes of the game are emotionally draining, focusing on themes of loss, helplessness, and sacrifice. And I won't lie, I cried. We cried together. The weight of the conclusion of Ness's journey with his friends hits you very hard, and unlike other games, you still get to play before the credits roll, meaning you have to manually say goodbye to your friends as the world returns to normal. Even though they aren't real people, knowing your adventures with them has come to a close is really, really sad. I've played the game to completion several times since then, and each time I love it more and more. I notice things I didn't before, I understand characters a little bit better, and I get to remember so many things. The game is so tightly associated with such a transitional period in my life that when I play it, I can't help but have all those feelings rush back to me as Ness says goodbye to his mom and sister to start his journey. Not to mention, it's my wife's favorite game, and it's the first game we played through together. It's always going to be special to me for that. Even though I'm a grown man, Ness leaving his mom and sister reminds me of my own mom and sister. They actually each moved away before I did, but it's still a reminder of when the three of us were together all the time. Ness's dad is never seen in the game, you can only talk to him on the phone, which hits home for me because when I moved I left my dad behind, and now outside of the occasional cross-country visit, I only get to talk to him on the phone. No matter how old I get, these things will sting because I'm constantly missing my family and I know how hard it is to leave people behind.
To me, that's what makes EarthBound so special. It's because it's so human. It's about love and friendship and pain and loss and joy, and it has something for everybody. We all have times we wish we could go back to, and we all know how scary it is to grow up. EarthBound takes those feelings and builds one of the best games ever made around it.
Because EarthBound is so much about the bonds created between friends and family, I always name the characters after myself and my close friends. Renaming characters in RPGs is something I grew out of as I got older, but for EarthBound, I have to do it. Anything, be it a game, movie, song, whatever, that can make you feel is a powerful thing. The fact that this game can make you smile with tears in your eyes illustrates just how fantastic it is at touching you deeply, blending the experiences in the game with things from your own past. It will make you cry, and not only because of what it puts in front of you, but also because you'll remember your own struggles, triumphs, victories, and friends long gone. There's a reason the ending theme is called Smiles and Tears, which, by the way, has one spoken line of dialogue that gets me every single time. I even like to just put on the soundtrack and lose myself in it from time to time. The game's music is full of masterpieces on their own, with fun, jazzy tracks, silly songs with wacky sound effects, and somber pieces that punctuate the game's heavier moments. Foreside's theme fills me with feelings of hope and adventure whenever I hear it, and whenever I go for a walk, I always start by listening to One Ed's theme. Like I said before, Smiles and Tears gets me every time. What makes me so happy about the recent Virtual Console release is that so many people are now getting to experience it for the very first time. I honestly think it's a game everyone should play because of what it offers. A fun, one-of-a-kind RPG with unique mechanics and a great story with real heart and emotion behind it. My best friend started his first ever playthrough of the game with his daughter, who's a toddler, and he read all the dialogue to her like a storybook. And if that's not the most adorable thing you've ever heard, you're some kind of robot.
So yeah, EarthBound. It's an amazing, fantastic, incredible, unforgettable game, and it means the world to me. And do whatever you can to play it, and please support the Virtual Console release to increase the chances of Nintendo bringing the sequel, Mother 3, over. Because it's every bit as touching and heartwarming and heartbreaking and amazing as the original, and you shouldn't miss it. But on top of that, we've been around for 2 years. 2 years of the Backlog. And it's really crazy to me. I'm closing in on 2,000 subscribers, and when I first started a couple years ago, I had no idea where this is gonna go. I just wanted to do something fun, and it's been an amazing journey. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for everyone who's watched and subscribed and commented, anyone who's reached out to me. It means the world to me that when I make this show, you guys enjoy it. So thank you so much for all your support over the past 2 years. I'm just getting started, so I hope to go along the rest of the journey with you guys right there. So thank you again very much, and yeah, thanks.